Okay, well, let's go ahead and shift gears here. I understand that you're a musician, and how do you feel about the importance of music in Doctor Who and audio? And to be more specific, the importance of supporting a story.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
do you believe it's important?
mm.
And how do you feel about the music that is currently being used in the TV series? And from what I understand, you have not heard your story, The Resurrection Plant, yet. So
No,
you haven't heard that music.
not at all. I know, as I've been doing a few podcasts, one of the other podcasts I was a guest on,
Hmm.
that they managed to get a review copy of it, a digital download was
Of the
sent. Yeah,
Resurrection Plant?
yeah, yeah. And so
Really?
they were astounded to find that they'd heard it and I haven't. But
Wow.
it was for review purposes. You know, that's
Uh-huh.
how they obtained it. So they couldn't
Right.
send me a copy and say, "Oh, we'll send you our copy." Then they can't do that because that's not the purpose of it. They were sent it because they are going to review it. So
Okay.
they told me the sound design is terrific. You know,
Okay.
the sound effects in it, like Patrick Troughton in one scene, the Doctor uses the sonic screwdriver. Now, in season 6, the sonic screwdriver hadn't been used that often at all. It was a new thing. But apparently, the sound designers paid so much attention to detail that the sound effect is the correct sound effect
Oh,
for the
wow.
sonic screwdriver in 1969. So they've gone to great extent to get it as authentic as they can. Have you seen the preview article in Doctor Who magazine? Um,
Yes. Yes.
got
That came out
mm,
recently in a
yeah.
digital version.
Well,
Um,
I've got the actual magazine. So
oh, okay.
so David Rucroft, who's the sound designer, is interviewed in this.
Uh-huh. Yep.
I mean, that's a dream come true, Grego, just to see me in Doctor Who magazine.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
I
No
I
doubt.
used to send things off to these guys, hoping that they would commission me to write an article. And by the time I was in my 30s, I'd given up trying.
And
And
now they're
now
writing an article about you.
they're writing about me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so that's astounding when you think about it. To go from being a teenager and now I'm in my early 50s, and now they're writing about me and a story I've written. But going back
Right.
to your music question, um, yeah, it is crucial, really. When you think about
Okay.
the Delia Derbyshire version of the theme music, how evocative that is. You think about Dudley Simpson's background music in the 1970s and late 60s.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely
Um,
beautiful.
you know, certain ones come to mind, like Genesis of the Daleks, for example. So when
Hmm.
the Daleks are all coming in through the doorway into the main area, and you've got the ding, ding, boom, boom,
Mm.
ding, that metallic sort of military
Yeah.
sound that Dudley Simpson came up with. You've got the piano melody in City of Death, that so
Hmm.
he was really good at doing that.
You're
Robots of
making me want to
Death.
watch these episodes again. I think I already know what I'm going to be watching tonight.
Yeah, yeah. But then the BBC Radiophonic Workshop comes along, doesn't it? And you've got Peter Howell's version of the theme. You've got the music to the Leisure Hive. Oh, that is
Yeah.
such a piece of music in its own right. The
Hmm.
LP record, the 33 vinyl, Doctor Who the Music, when that came out, I was 13. And that has the Leisure Hive, uh, the suite of that music from that story all in a single track. And it's so evocative of the synthesizers they were using at the time, but a bit more than that.
Right.
It sounded a bit like Jean-Michel Jarre, but yeah, there's something very Doctor Who-ish about it that made it separate from other electronic music. His
Who was the
score,
composer of Leisure Hive?
Peter Howell.
Peter Howell,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
he's,
yeah,
I guess you would say he's one of your favorite composers for
yeah,
Doctor Who
yeah.
music.
When
Yeah.
the theme music single came out, do you remember the B-side to that record was a track called The Astronauts? So
Yes.
it wasn't a piece of
Uh-huh.
music that was in Doctor Who. It was just it had been used on another program,
Yes.
and it was a shortened version put on the B side of the single. Well,
I
that
have
is
that.
just so funky, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. That's
You've got
crazy.
that bit
Yeah.
of bum 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 at the
Yeah.
beginning, all
Yeah.
that, and it sounds a bit like disco, but it also sounds a bit like rock, and it's got the electronic stuff as well.
Kind
It's
of
all
reminded
over.
me of Kraftwerk a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. The German
yeah.
techno
So
pioneers.
Peter Howell's a big one for me in the radiophonic workshop. Paddy Kingsland is the other. The music he did for Logopolis, that very strong kind of funereal vibe that runs all the way through, that you know that dire things are happening, even if the
Right.
script isn't always clear. It's not comprehensible some of the time, and you're not quite sure. You understand that the universe is being threatened and universal collapse is coming, and the Doctor looks very grave, but the music underpins that all the way through. I absolutely adore Paddy Kingsland's radiophonic workshop music for Logopolis. Yeah, really makes it.
Now,
Sorry, go on.
when you were 10 years old, you won the Doctor Who sound effects LP.
Yeah.
And an LP, for anyone these days that may not know, is a vinyl record. That's a vinyl
Yeah.
record, of course. Uh,
Long play.
yep, yeah, that's right, long play. And then there was EP also, wasn't there? Extended play?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And then of
yeah,
course you had the single, the 45.
right, 45s.
Yeah,
And you won this in a competition with Doctor Who Weekly magazine.
yeah. Here we are.
How? Oh, there we go.
Doctor Who Weekly. Yeah. And it's the issue is 23rd of July 1980. So I was 10 when it came out, number 41. And they ran a competition called Call the Shots. And you know how comic strips have like, say someone's firing a laser gun and then you've got a word across the top of the beam that describes the sound of the laser. And so the competition was come up with a written word that describes this laser beam being fired in the comic strip. And I couldn't think of anything. So I said to my mum, I said, I can't think of anything for this. I want to go into this competition. I can't think of anything. And she said, she thought for a moment, and she said, what about Zwisk? And I said, well, how do you write that
How do you
down?
spell that? Yeah.
She said, well, it's a Z,
Z.
WEESK exclamation. So I wrote that down on a postcard, sent it into Doctor Who Weekly, and forgot all about it. And then I can remember I was in the penultimate class of primary school. So, and we'd all gone out. All the class had gone out on a day trip to the city of York, which was terribly exciting. And I was reading the previous edition of this Doctor Who Weekly on the train. Actually, I can remember on the way back reading it, and my teacher smiling at me, rolling her eyes, going, "Ooh, Doctor Who again." And when I got home after this day trip to York, my mother said, have you got the latest Doctor Who Weekly? It came out every Thursday, and I hadn't. And she brought it in. She says, well, I've got it. And I thought, well, why would you buy that, other than to give it to me? And she said, look on page 23. So I did. And on page 23 is the results of the Call the Shots sound effects competition. And she said, look down the names. And I looked down the names, and it was just this sea of 100 names, 100 winners. And I thought, what am I looking at this for? And then she's, in the end, she put a finger. I can't find it now. Oh, here we are. So if you look there, William Hadcroft, Manchester. So I used to live in Little Hulton, which is in Greater Manchester. So William Hadcroft from Manchester. No. So
Yep.
that's it. I'd won the record, one of 100 winners. And she said, right now, go into the living room, into the front room, and look on top of the mantelpiece. So, and my grandma, her mother was there. So she was in on this, this this little setup. So I went into the living room, and there's this on the mantelpiece above the fire was a big square envelope with my name on it, my name and address. And she said, this has come for you. And I opened it up, and this is what was inside.
Oh, nice.
So it's a bit fucking, it's habit really now, but that's the Doctor Who sound effects record that I won. Well,
Can we see the back of that one?
Yeah, there's the vault.
And how many tracks are on that?
There are, side 1 has got 8, and side 2 has got 22.
Wow.
So some of them are very, very short indeed. Like, like the Gallifrey and Staser gun. So you get that bang, that kind of noise.
Yeah.
So it will say Gallifrey and Staser, 3 shots. So you'll get 3, one after the other. Down, and that's the end of that track. And then it would move on to the next thing. So I remember my mother and my grandmother being bemused by it, because really sound effects records are to produce sort of make your own plays, and put the sound effects in the background. Well, my grandma couldn't understand this at all. And we played it because I was so excited. We played the LP right through like a conventional record. So we put the needle on the first track and play the background of a control room or something. And then it moves on to another background noise and another ambience, or the doors of the TARDIS opening and closing. Right. And then the next track will be the scanner screen. And my grandma was just staring at it all the time, going, "What is it again, Margaret? What is it?" She just couldn't understand why anyone would want a record with all that on it. Right. Because she didn't understand that people made their own plays and needed sound effects for them. Right. So that was the start. That was probably the start of wanting to be published, because it's the very first time I ever saw my name in print.
Your name, yeah. In Doctor Who magazine.
Yeah, it had a profound. I mean, to go from Doctor Who Weekly with my name in that list, and then the current issue of Doctor Who magazine, and there's a preview article. You've gone from Doctor Who Weekly in 1979 to the latest Doctor Who magazine in 2022, and it's staggering, really, the journey in between.
Yeah. Well, your name is going down in history. I mean, you are a Doctor Who author, and I'm a little jealous of whoever got a review copy of your story.
So am I.
I'd really, really like to know how they did that. I'm going to look into that right there. Okay, so I recently watched a video. When you agreed to let me interview you, I researched you and looked up your previous works quite extensively, in fact. And I watched a video of you titled Aspects of Asperger's. I hope I'm saying that correctly, with you and Mark Haddon on Radio 4 Saturday Live. And that was from March of 2013. How did that happen?
Well, of course, I was known by then in sort of the Asperger's world, if you like. There was a period of time where a number of authors, being published by Jessica Kingsley, we were like a sort of little collective of famous people in that little bubble, in that little world, you see. So outside of it, no one's heard of us, but inside of it, people like Luke Jackson, Leanne Willey, Wendy Lawson, and I'd read their books before I submitted mine, and then of course my name was amongst that list then. So for a period of time, I was part of this collective of writers, and Radio 4, BBC Radio 4, Saturday Live, they wanted to do a piece on Mark Haddon's The Curious Incidents of the Dog in the Nighttime, which is an international best-selling novel. And the main character in it, Christopher, is a boy who's on the autistic spectrum. So they wanted Mark Haddon on because he'd had that success, and his book was being turned into a stage play as well. So he was promoting that. And they wanted someone else on alongside him who has the condition.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked for somebody, I can't remember who it was now, but somebody more well-known than me, and they weren't available. And I was suggested as a good replacement for that person to go on and talk about it.
Okay.
So I went on that, and gave my account of living with Asperger's, and Doctor Who came up, of course, and other things that I've been attached to, and that I've used as a source of comfort. Yeah.
You know what? I think that's actually on YouTube.
It is.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah,
anybody who wants
we
to
put
see
it
that.
up. Yeah.
Okay. Another one of your works is a book titled "What's All the Fuss About," which I also have, and yes, I've read that as well. And it was authored by you and Ian Wheeler. Tell us about how that came to be, and yes, that right there. And what would a reader expect from that publication? I already know the answer to that because I've read it, and it's excellent. In fact, what I would suggest, if anyone has a friend that they're trying to introduce to Doctor Who, and they need a really good basic tutorial to explain everything about Doctor Who in simple terms, I would highly suggest it. But how did that? What would you tell a reader, a potential reader, what they might expect from that publication by you and Ian Wheeler?
Yeah, it's the idea is to introduce. Let's say someone's watched some of the recent series or the post 2005 series, but they don't know anything about the classic series, or maybe they've watched Peter Capaldi and Jodie Whittaker, but they don't know anything about what went before, and they don't know where to start. What do you watch first? Is there a particular order, particular stories? So the idea was, why not do a book where each Doctor is covered? We give a brief synopsis of the program in that particular era, and then one or two production details, but not many. It's not a big reference work. It's just to give you a flavor of the ideas behind particular eras, and then recommend certain stories, a handful of stories from each era, and say, try this one. So I came up with that format, and I did the first two Doctors to see how it works. I did Hartnell and Troughton, and I thought this looks like it could work, but I didn't want to write the whole thing myself. I didn't have the time to sit down and write it all myself. And I'd had some correspondence over the years with Ian Wheeler, who was for quite a while the editor of Celestial Toy Room, the Doctor Who Appreciation Society magazine, and even now it goes back as guest editor every so often. So I got in touch with him and said, how would you like to co-author this book with me? And I sent him the Hartnell and Troughton chapters, and he said, I would love to, yeah.
Nice. So
privately, I was thinking, I knew which ones I wanted to do. I wanted to do Tom Baker, Colin Baker, Paul McGann. I can't remember. I think it weren't have been Christopher Eccleston or David Tennant. I can't remember now. And Peter Capaldi, who'd only his first season had just aired. And I remember thinking, I bet Ian wants to do these. We're going to have a big row about this. And then I gave him my list. These are the ones I want to do. And his reply was, this is great, because I want to do John Pertwee, Peter Davison, Sylvester McCoy, and David Tennant.
Perfect.
So it dovetailed.
Nice. Nice.
And I think we wrote the Peter Capaldi one together. And of course, we commented on one another's chapters as well,
Right.
areas where we agree with one another or not. And I tried it out because I remember when Delta and the Bannermen was broadcast, I recorded that on VHS, I taped it. And then when video went out of, when it went out and was replaced by DVD, I never bothered buying Delta and the Bannermen on DVD. So I hadn't seen it for a long time. And that was one of the stories that Ian recommended in his Sylvester McCoy chapter. And he gave his reasons for liking it. So I thought, right, I'm going to test this now. I'm going to buy Delta and the Bannermen. And it was only going for £6. It'd been out a long time. It was cheap. So I thought, I'm only wasting £6 if I don't like it. So I bought Delta and the Bannermen, and everything he said that was good about it is there. And I really enjoyed it. I was actually suffering from a bit of depression at the time, and I needed a lift. And I found that watching Delta and the Bannermen this particular afternoon, when everybody was out the house, really put a smile on my face and lifted my spirits. Everything he said it would do, it did. So I thought, right.
And you learned this while working on your own publication.
Yeah. So I knew then that the concept worked.
Right.
There is one glaring error in it, though, Grego.
Yeah. Well, now, you don't have to mention that, and here's why I say that.
Oh, go on.
My mother is an author. I don't know if you have ever seen him. The late Bob Ross. He used to be on PBS, public television here in the States, the same PBS that aired Doctor Who. And she is a certified painting instructor that trained under him in Canada back before he died. And she told me that one thing to remember about your own art is that if you do not point out your errors to people, chances are 99% they're not going to see them. So you don't need to point the error out. I do know what it is.
All right, because we have discussed it.
Yes.
All right, I won't say what it is, but what I will say is that every time somebody gets to that bit, they get in touch with me and tell me I got it wrong.
Right.
So if anybody reads it and they find this particular bit, I know I got it wrong. Okay.
Consider it an Easter egg or a treasure hunt. So everyone go and read this and find the error in it.
when we do a fresh edit on it, I'm going to get rid of that error.
Okay.
No one will know them. Yeah.
So speaking of the DWAS or the Doctor Who Appreciation Society, you recently had a story published in Pets in Time. And I do have that. I have read that. That's an outstanding fun book. And Mia and her kittens. Yeah, yes, that right there. There's a good 30 plus stories in there. And what's interesting is that those stories are written by big names in Doctor Who, yourself included. And this, for many of them, it may be their first published work of nonfiction. I believe. So it's an interesting standpoint.
For some of them,
for some of them, And you had written a story about Mia and her kittens titled Mia and the Woodshed Cats. How did you that was a great story, by the way. Very enjoyable.
I love that picture there. I don't you can see it.
Yep.
Two kittens swinging on a...
That's an actual photograph.
That's a photograph.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it always puts a smile on my face. That it's so funny when it was happening. So yeah, Mia and the Woodshed Cats. Again, Ian Wheeler was the editor of this publication, and he knew that the Resurrection Plant was coming out, and he knew from What's All the Fuss About Doctor Who, that I was involved in publishing anyway. So he said, "How would you like to submit the account of Mia and her kittens?" Because he already knew about that, because I'd already done this Mia and the Woodshed
and the Woodshed Cats,
which is the fictionalized version of the same story.
Okay.
So if you like cats, in fact, I'll show you. Just it's astonishing.
That is such a fun book. It came out very recently. Wasn't that just published like last month or something?
This one, no, the Pets in Time is very recent.
Yeah, I think that just came out last month.
Yeah, this is a few years old, the
Uh-huh.
fictionalized version. But again, Owen Claxton's artwork. I'm trying to find that there's a particular picture. They're all based on photographs. These pieces of artwork. Where's the one with them coming out from? Here we go. So the woodshed is literally this way, right on the other side of the wall here.
Oh,
I live
present.
I live in an old farm cottage, an old rundown farm cottage, and on the other side of that stone wall is it's not really a shed, it's more of a barn, and it's where the farmer keeps his wood. And the kittens were born in there. Mia was a stray, and she gave birth to her kittens in there. And they used to come out from under the door, the wooden door on the front. So I got Owen to paint that.
Yep.
Very sweet. Again, I just want to show off his artwork really, because it's so lovely.
The entire book is absolutely excellent. And while that is technically not a Doctor Who book or a book of fiction, I have very much enjoyed. I'm about halfway through the stories. I have that on my nightstand now, and it will be there. It's going to be there until I finish every story in it, and it gives you a very interesting perspective of the people and the names that you've heard of in Doctor Who. It's a 10 out of 10. That's what I'll say. That book's a 10 out of 10.
You mean this one, yeah? You mean
Pets
this
in
one?
Time. Yes, Pets in Time. Yep, Doctor Who Appreciation Society. And me being in the States, when I ordered that, the shipping was not very high. It was very reasonable. And that book was it's a great deal, actually. Okay, so shifting gears here as we're getting near the end, we're looking at about 2.5 hours, something like that we're into this. I was surprised. I'm like, wait a second, didn't we start at noon? It was noon here, 8 p.m. your time.
Yeah. Well, we're having a good time, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. This is really fun. Okay, so getting to the current state of Doctor Who, with us being half-century old plus Whovians, if you wish, it's interesting to see that there are generations of Doctor Who fans spanning from the original TV broadcasts from 1963 to 1989, the US TV movie, of course, and then the incredible modern 21st century reboot. What were you doing during the wilderness years when Doctor Who wasn't on TV for so long that I think the majority of us thought, that's it, it'll never come back? What were you doing back then, and how do you feel about it in its modern form, which began with Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor and Russell T Davies as the showrunner in 2005?
Yeah. Well, first of all, what we call the wilderness years, so 1989 to 96, and then after the Paul McGann film up to 2005, there were all these spin-off productions, weren't there? I mean, we had the Doctor Who magazine monthly. We had people like Real Time Pictures doing the Myth Makers interviews of various actors and behind-the-scenes people. We had BBV, the Bill Baggs dramas, The Stranger and Miss Brown, and all of that, starring actors from Doctor Who playing characters who are very similar to the characters they played in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Then there was an audio series that Mark Gatiss did. I think it was called Adventures in Space and Time, and it was the Dominique and Alice, played by Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred. So it's basically the Seventh Doctor in Ace by end of the game.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you had Virgin Publishing, The New Adventures and the Missing Adventures. And then BBC Books after that. And then Big Finish got started.
Right.
So although Doctor Who was not on television, there was plenty to go at.
And of course, the audio visuals, the audio visuals, the predecessor to Big Finish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't you say that, not to get off the topic on the question here, didn't you say that you knew someone that was producing the audio visuals, or someone that was involved?
Not at the time, but John Ainsworth was one of the founding members.
That's right.
Yeah. So I knew him later on.
Okay. Yeah. So on to the question there. How do you feel about the reboot from 2005 with Christopher Eccleston and Russell T Davies as producer?
Well, that was interesting because of the way it was done. The idea that the Doctor is suffering from survivor's guilt, believing himself to be the sole survivor of a massive war. And so he's not inclined to wear frilly shirts and long scarves. And, it's a black leather jacket, steel toe cap boots, and short cropped hair. Took me a while to get used to that image of the Doctor. It didn't feel like the Doctor at all, the way he looked, particularly. But then as the backstory started to unfold as to why he was like that, then, And in the years since, rewatching that first series with Christopher Eccleston, it's one of my favorite series now.
Yeah.
I was quite critical, not very critical, but I was slightly critical of certain things when it was broadcast originally. But now I have a very nostalgic feeling about it. It's so long ago now,
Yeah.
One of my favorite seasons.
Same here. I still remember when learning that Doctor Who was going to return to TV, and after surviving the wilderness years, I remember being absolutely 100% certain that they are going to totally screw this up. And I had very little confidence, and it's because of the fact that I had loved and missed Doctor Who for so long. I was totally certain that it's not going to work, and boy, was I wrong. I remember being so surprised after Rose aired. I couldn't believe it. It's like, how have they done this? That was very, very pleasant. So I'm nostalgic for that era as well.
Yeah. The funny thing is, before it came back, I was enjoying the Paul McGann Big Finish audio so much.
Right.
Stories like The Chimes of Midnight and all of that.
Right.
And some of the earlier ones like Spare Parts, the Peter Davison Genesis of the Cybermen story. I was so caught up in all of those.
Is awesome.
I didn't care if it didn't come back at that point.
Really?
I just thought that, this will do. Big Finish are doing such a great job. If it never comes back, I'm happy, more than happy with this.
You know what? Totally off topic here, but you just made me realize something that I needed to clarify. I understand that you cannot submit a story to Big Finish because they can't read it. And it's the same with the BBC. I recently had this conversation with another author who just so happens to be the most recent published Big Finish Doctor Who author. And she had reminded me that you cannot submit stories to them because they're not allowed to read them, that you have to actually be invited in some manner. Okay. Have you been, or would you expect to be invited to write a Doctor Who story for Big Finish by any chance?
That's a tough one, that, Grego. Obviously,
Okay.
I want to.
You want
obviously.
to? Okay.
Okay. I'd like to do some more BBC audio originals, and of course, I would love to go over to Big Finish as well. And as I've always wanted to do a play with a full cast, I did that one in 2006 with Fine Line and Gareth Preston as an amateur thing. But really, I want to write a play and have actors perform the parts, and have an actor who played the Doctor on television play the Doctor for me, and of course I would love to do a Colin Baker one. I have run a couple of ideas by John, but but he's recently become senior producer at Big Finish. He's taking over David Richardson's position there. And so I don't know now, because he's
Okay.
producer is not the same as a script editor. He's, you know, I don't know if he would approach me again for anything, or if it would be down to somebody else, or does it depend on the success of the Resurrection plans? I don't know.
Well, okay, time will tell.
Yeah.
Let's see, where were we here? Is there anything notable about the school that you attended in relation to Doctor Who?
Yes, there is the school and the town.
Right.
Little Hulton is where Christopher Eccleston grew up. His parents came from Langworthy in Salford, and they moved to Little Hulton in the 1960s, I think. So Chris, you know, grew up there. I know the street where he lived. I know it well.
Do you have the same accent?
I do, yeah. Because obviously I lived in the same place for years till I was 14. I went to the same secondary school as him. He's 5 years my senior, so I never met him at school.
You never met him. Okay. Can you say this? Can you say fantastic?
I can. Fantastic.
Okay.
But I don't sound exactly like him, because there are some differences in our background. His parents were from Salford and came to Little Hulton. But Little Hulton was originally a quaint village before the Second World War. It was a mining town. You know, my granddad Hadcroft was a coal miner, and most of the men of that generation were. And what happened was that when the Second World War came along and destroyed huge areas of city of Salford and Manchester, they had to throw up all these housing estates, these projects, I believe we call them in the States, and get all those families in there as quick as possible to house them. So this quaint little mining town suddenly became this sprawling housing estate, and the Salford people came to live. And so you've got my granddad Hadcroft's generation, who are sort of traditional old-fashioned Boltons. So my granddad might say something like, hey, up, yeah, young man, put wood in fall, which means, young man, put the wood in the hole, meaning close the door. So he would say, hey, young man over there, put wood in fall. And that means, you lad, put the wood in the hole, close the door. So I came from, my dad's side of the family had that way of speaking. My mother's side of the family, my grandma on my mother's side, they came from a place called Prue, which is a bit posher than Little Hulton and Salford. And she arrived in 1936. So you've got this real mixture in the way I speak of the Bolton sound, the posh Prue, being very precise in the way you pronounce words, and then the Salford accent where you kind of talk a bit like that, and you drop the G on ing words, and you say in it instead of isn't it. So I've got 3 accents or dialects all warring with one another all the time. So people are often surprised to find that I come from Little Hulton, because I don't sound like the way many of them do. But I can switch into it, you know, and say things like fantastic, the way Christopher Eccleston does.
Okay, so you were interviewed the OSI files. This is something else I learned while I was researching you before interviewing you. And you were interviewed on the OSI files with John S. Drew in New York City in regards to the television series, The $6 Million Man. Good old Steve Austin. I remember that show. Yes, and that chin 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 chin. I remember as a kid, I used to think I was the $6 Million Man. So you have some American writers that you admire.
Of course,
from what I understand.
They are mostly television script writers, although there is one author called Audrey Niffenegger who wrote The Time Traveler's Wife. And I was really struck by that novel. The film is quite a simplified and watered down version of the story. The book is complex and really draws you in. That's a brilliant book by Audrey Niffenegger. Script writers, obviously people like Joe Michael Straczynski, who created and wrote most of Babylon 5. Great admiration for him. But my favorite has to be Kenneth Johnson, who will be known to some people as the guy who adapted Alien Nation to television.
Right.
Others will know him as the guy who created and wrote the miniseries V. Remember they pull their faces off and they're lizards underneath. That was a big series over here, V, smash hit. He created the Bionic Woman character, Jamie Summers, for the $6 Million Man. But in my heart, Kenneth Johnson is the man who adapted The Incredible Hulk to television. And
Right.
I was never really a reader of comic books. I never read the Incredible Hulk comic book, but I love that TV show.
You know, I got to actually meet Lou Ferrigno twice.
Did you?
Yeah, in the same day. While that program
Wow.
was on air, my grandmother used to work at Universal Studios in Los Angeles. And we were there one day, and it was when you're touring Universal Studios, they'll have different sections that you go through. Like you have the Western town where a lot of films were produced, and then Battlestar Galactica. There was a ride where you could actually go through, and you had Cylons and a laser battle, and it just absolutely crazy. There was Jaws, where you would be on a tram, and all of a sudden the shark would come out of the water and the tram would fall over as if it was going to fall in the water. That was actually really scary. But Lou Ferrigno was there in costume, you know, all painted green. And he came into one of the shows that was about the Incredible Hulk. It may have just been called the Incredible Hulk Experience or something that simple. We were all sitting in a outdoor concrete amphitheater, and he came in there just I mean, it was guy. I mean, Lou Ferrigno is huge, and so I got to see him in that show. And then later in the day, my grandma said, "Hey, do you want to go meet the Incredible Hulk?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." I don't remember how old I was then. It was, but I actually got to go in the studio, inside the studio where they were working, and I can't tell you what we said though. I was in such awe, and it was very brief, but I did actually get to meet him, and so it sounds like you enjoyed that show too.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, because obviously, if you're a sensitive boy, and Dr. David Banner, the way Bill Bixby played him and the way it was written, was a sensitive man who had this thing where when his frustrations and his anger peaked, he would turn into this creature. But then, and then when he reverts back, he's full of remorse and sorrow, and I've got to find a cure for this thing. I was really caught up in it all, and I began to realize that this is again when videos started coming out. I remember they repeated, my ITV station repeated just the pilot film, The Incredible Hulk, not the whole series. And it said at the end of the pilot film, written, produced, and directed by Kenneth Johnson. And I thought, wow, I love the pilot film so much. It's one of my favorite films. Because it's just so emotional and so on a psychological level, it really resonates with me. And then when V started to come out on VHS, the miniseries, and I saw created by and written and directed by Kenneth Johnson. So I started to connect it up then. And then when $6 Billion Man and Bionic Woman started coming out again, The Bionic Woman was written by Kenneth Johnson. I started to realize this is the same man. All the way through these shows, who's had this influence on me. I mean, one of the Bionic Woman episodes deals with the fembots, these android women. We rip the face off of him. Got these two ping pong ball eyes and a load of wires and circuits.
Yep,
And
I
that
remember
was
that.
one of the very first times in my life I had heard the word android. And of course, later on, I created a character called Android. So,
Right.
and also the idea of Kenneth Johnson's idea with the Hulk was not to have any other super villains in it or any other super anybody. It was just David Banner, an ordinary man who had this particular condition that was blighting his life, and everything else around him was ordinary, recognizable, real life. So with Android and various other things, I've kind of held to that principle of having one extraordinary thing and surrounding them with lots of straightforward, ordinary situations and people.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to bring it full circle, Gregor, the resurrection plant has two references to Kenneth Johnson in it as a kind of homage from me saying thank you to him, really, for being such an inspiration. One, fans of the Incredible Hulk pilot, if they know it well, it'll stand out as soon as they hear it. The other is more subtle. But if you've ever watched the pilot and the episode Married with the director's commentary on, I think it's, Married with Kenneth Johnson's director's commentary on, there's a particular phrase that he refers to in there, and I've put it in the resurrection plant. So
Okay,
he'll know
very
it. And
interesting. He's gonna pick
his
up on it.
his wife Susie, who I've had some exchanges with as well, she'll know it when she hears it. And that's just my way of saying thank you, Kenneth Johnson, really.
Wow, that really very, very interesting. You know, I hope and pray that people that watch this all go out and order your book, or your audio book. I really do, because I have a feeling that this is going to be really good. And your background and your history is really interesting. I mean, my God, man, 30 years in the works. I mean, people, they really need to think about that.
Yeah,
And
20 years at least.
I think that's reason enough to really give some consideration to going out and ordering the resurrection plant. Okay, Mr. Hadcroft, we're getting near the end here. Thanks for hanging in there so long.
Thank you for hanging in there so long.
Yeah, I've very much enjoyed this. I've had people say that my interviews tend to sound like I'm a little bit bored or disinterested, and that is absolutely not the case. Not the case. You are very interesting to speak with, and got a final piece here.
Okay.
Doctor Who is going to enter a new era soon, as Jodie Whittaker's incarnation will transform into the new Doctor, as performed by, and I've got to make sure that I'm pronouncing this right because I've never actually heard his name, Ncuti Gatwa. Okay, now in looking at the way his name is spelled, I keep wanting to call him Cutie Gatwa. Okay, but I think
maybe some people do.
Maybe we should, or maybe I should coin that right now, Cutie Gatwa, because he is cute. But his name is Ncuti. Okay, so Ncuti Gatwa is the Doctor soon. And we're seeing the return of Russell T Davies as the showrunner once again, which is just, that's so shocking. I don't even know what to think about it. And that's been called by some fans, that's been coined as RTD2. So are you excited about what's to come here pretty soon in the next few months?
I am. I am.
Yeah.
I don't expect Russell to do exactly what he did first time round, but I think there are certain things he does in everything he writes. One of the things is that he always takes you into a situation through the eyes of a family. The fact that I've done that with the resurrection plants, I'm actually inspired by him. I heard him say it in an interview once. So you take the viewer in through the eyes of an ordinary family. So with Rose, for example.
Heard Russell T Davies say this?
Yeah, it must have been on Doctor Who Confidential or something like that years ago. That's or maybe somebody said it's about him. I don't know. But if you think about it, you go in, Rose, her mother Jackie, her boyfriend Mickey. That's our way in to the Christopher Eccleston series. It does it again with Martha. It does it again with Donna. That's his method. And you follow, because the world of the Doctor is so extraordinary. If you go in through the channel of ordinary people and be taken along with them, that's a great way of doing it, and it really worked first time around. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if one of the things he did back then that he does repeat is that method of taking us into the Doctor's world through the eyes of an ordinary girl or boy and their family, and then being swept along into the story. And if he does do it that way, it will work, you know.
Isn't that kind of what happened with Rose and her family and Mickey and
Yeah.
And
if you watch other programs that he's written, he did a thing called The Second Coming, which was a sort of atheist version of the Messiah. And you kind of go into the world of that character that Christopher Eccleston plays there through the eyes of not so much a girlfriend, it's a close friend who's but they're not romantically involved to start with, at least, and her family and the character Chris, I think he's called Stephen Baxter, his family. You kind of get into it through them, and then Chris has his big moment where he suddenly becomes convinced that he is the Son of God, and then you're swept along then along with those characters who surround him. So Russell does that with everything he writes. So if he does it again, that will work. You know, because there are some people who become disenfranchised with Doctor Who under Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker. Not everybody. Some people really loved it, you know. I remember when the Flux series came, just after the first episode was aired, I remember somebody on Twitter put, "Oh, I've missed her so much," and I thought, "Yeah, I believe you. I believe you." You know, it was a sincere comment.
Right.
But a lot of other people do not feel like that, and the program has suffered a little, I believe, because of it. And I think the general public, much like in the Sylvester McCoy era, the fans are keen on it. The fans want it to succeed, and a lot of them were with Chris and Jodie, willing it to succeed. But the general public outside of fandom, who, if they lose interest, they just stop watching. That has kind of happened over the last few years, and I think Russell knows exactly how to switch it back and make it a success again. So I'm not knocking the Jodie Whittaker stuff, because I know there are people out there who love it, but I think Russell will get it back on track with the audience at large.
Well, Jodie has such a massive fan following just on Twitter alone. It's amazing. And so with you mentioning that comment about someone saying, "Oh, I have really missed her," I get that, because I read that and I see that happening. And I very much enjoyed the Jodie Whittaker era. And I can see the day when people will have nostalgia for it as well.
Much as they have with Sylvester McCoy. You know, it was slated a lot at the time by people like me at age 18. But then you get older, you revisit it when it's no longer the current era. It goes through a period of reevaluation, and you find
that's a good way of putting it.
You know, you find that some of them were better than you first thought. Some aren't brilliant, but you can see what the writer was trying to do. You start to forgive it a little, the things that aren't quite right. And I think that's what will happen with that in time, as people look back on it.
What I'm hoping for when it comes back is, I'm hoping that the approach to incidental music has been reevaluated. And I'm not saying anything bad about the current composer. In fact, I wish I could say his name, but honestly, I don't know how to pronounce it. So I don't want to.
Sigun Akinola or something. Sigun Akinola. Sigun.
Yeah, that's how.
Like his, I like his version of the theme music a great deal.
Oh yes.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, the theme music is absolutely outstanding. There's never been the use of bass tone in a Doctor Who theme anything like that. And for anyone that does not know, for someone who has only seen it like on a computer or a phone or what have you, that theme song needs to be listened to on a high-end stereo system that has a subwoofer, because until you have heard it in that manner, you might not have gotten it yet, because that is very dramatic with a high-end stereo system and a subwoofer. But as far as the incidental music, and again, I'm not knocking him, because I believe that he did a job that BBC asked him to do. I believe that he produced what they ordered. And you and I, having something in familiar where we remember the old 70s and early 80s American TV programs like $6 Million Man and Incredible Hulk, there were also trends in music at those times, which I would have a little difficulty putting into words right now, but you know what I mean. There were trends in music that crossed over multiple programs where music, it was similar. There was a certain style to it. And I believe today, if you look back at the trend where there were shaky handheld cameras, because everybody thought that would make a television program look cool. Well, fortunately that ended, because it kind of made me a little bit nauseous. And I think that now people looking back might be able to realize, that was kind of not a very good trend to have shaky cameras. Well, at present, it seems like there are all too many television programs, and not just British programs, here as well, where instead of having incidental music, you have some sort of weird undulating bass tone, which isn't really positive. It's almost, some of them can sound kind of depressing and
unnerving.
Unnerving. There you go. That's the word for it.
Well, that might be
And
deliberate, isn't it? It might be deliberate.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that what he has produced, being in that it is what was ordered by BBC, I think that is unfortunate. And I think that people that look at the Jodie Whittaker era, the people that do not like it, and there's a lot of them out there, and I respect them and I respect their opinions. I think the people that do not like it might not have given enough consideration to the fact that it may be the music that they don't like, or the lack of music. They may be way too quick to go point the finger, going, "Oh, I don't like Chris Chibnall," or whatever. And I think that people might not realize that there was a very large difference in this previous, in Flux. Flux actually had more music than normal of the TV programs. But would you like to see the new series, you being a fan of Doctor Who music from way back, would you like to see the new series music, which I guess it's probably already been produced at this point, but when it comes on TV in the next couple of months, are you wishing for something that is the same, or do you think it should be different?
That's a very good question indeed. There's what I would like, and then there's what's likely to happen.
Okay, exactly.
Maybe not the same thing. Where is it? Let me find it. There's a single. Here we are. I don't know if you ever watched a program called The Tripods. It was adapted as the theme tune to The Tripods.
I have not, Mr. Hadcroft, but I am very familiar with it, because of the fact that I looked that up when learning of you.
The composer is called Ken Freeman, right? And he remarkable in electronic music that sounds like classical music. He just had a way of doing it. The Jeff Wayne's musical version of the War of the Worlds, the dun, 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 you might know that famous record. He created, because he was an inventor and a mechanic, not a mechanic, what's the word? But as well as being a composer, he actually built the synthesizers himself. So they weren't bought from a shop. He actually designed and built the synthesizers himself. And so his music was way ahead of what synthesizers were like in the late 1970s. And his music, the theme music and the incidental music for the tripods is astonishing. I used to think it was a fusion of orchestra and keyboards, and then found out that it's all keyboards. I would like Ken Freeman to be given a shot at doing the music for Doctor Who, but I don't think he will be invited. First of all, it's keyboards, and they like to go with an orchestra nowadays. And also, I think Russell, well, I know for a fact that Russell, whatever Russell produces, Murray Gold does the music for it. This goes right back. Well, this goes right back to his groundbreaking series Queer as Folk, and I think that was the first time he'd used Murray Gold, and he liked the way Murray did the music so much that he decided that everything he wrote thereafter would have Murray Gold doing the music. So when he did Casanova later on, that had Murray Gold doing the music. The Second Coming had Murray Gold, and not surprisingly, Doctor Who did too. So I think that when it comes back under Russell, I think that he will probably bring Murray Gold back with him.
Very interesting.
Not for any other reason than he always uses it.
Because it's a proven, established pattern, and I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that.
I think It's a Sin and Years Murray did the music for those most recent Russell T Davies dramas. I'd have to check that now, but I'm pretty sure he does it for everything that Russell writes. So I think Russell will bring him back just for that reason.
I believe you're correct. I think you are. And now you've gotten me a little bit more excited about the next series. So this is the last thing here. All right. Please describe in as much detail as you can just exactly how it feels to become the newest Doctor Who author for BBC with the release of the Resurrection Plant this upcoming August 4th.
Well, it's a dream come true, Grego. You know, after all these years of trying to get something like this to happen, I'm so grateful to Michael Stevens, the producer, and to John Ainsworth, who approached me to submit an idea. And the fact that the thing has now been made, you know, I've been in Doctor Who magazine, I'm being interviewed on podcasts like this. The story is coming out in, you know, the time that we're recording this in a week or so. You know, the things I'm hearing about it from those few people who've already heard it, it's astonishing. And if, because obviously I know what the story is, so the way it's been described, the way Fraser reads it, the sound design by David Rucroft, I know that I'm gonna like it.
Right.
I know that everything I want it to do, it will do those things. And obviously I do hope it's a springboard to other things and opens doors to other opportunities. But you know what, Grego, if it doesn't, I'm still happy. I'm still happy that I got there and it's a dream come true. And if it never happens again, at least I did it this once and I am thrilled to bits with it.
Absolutely excellent, Will. Thank you very much for your time. And
thank you.
To anyone who is listening to or watching this, I would urge you to realize the fact that Mr. Hadcroft here has given us 3 hours of his time graciously, so that we can get to know him. And I'm not aware of another interview as in depth of any of the authors of the BBC Originals Doctor Who series. So go out, Google it, The Resurrection Plant by Will Hadcroft, buy it, listen to it, get online, review it, enjoy it. I think we're all going to enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
Will, this has been fantastic. Really appreciate it.
Fantastic.